From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Evidence and more testimony today in Yellowstone County District Court focused on phone records and cell signals the night 57-year-old Lori Bray was murdered. Q2's Shaquille Cozart was in the courtroom and brings us more details.
Today, on day 4 of the murder trial for 57-year-old Laurel woman Lori Bray, prosecutors focused on the cell phones of the accused Diego Hernandez and Bray's cell phones. Also, new surveillance footage was presented to the jury. Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office Detective Troy Chabanaugh utilized Verizon Wireless RTT data to determine where Bray's phone was on the night of October 1st. RTT stands for Range to Tower, which is what Verizon uses to connect cell towers with cell phones and determine their location. Chabanaugh concluded that Bray's phone was at Cedar Ridge Casino around midnight, during the time when surveillance footage captured her picking up Hernandez using location data from the only tower located in Laurel. Bray's phone also sent a signal from Hernandez's residence that night. Chabanaugh was also able to pinpoint where Bray's car was found in the general area where her body was located. Cell phone geolocation analysis expert Michael Fegley also took the stand, concluding similar findings. He created a video representation using Google Earth to also show where Bray's phone was the morning of October 1st. The data that was collected from Hernandez's phone did not offer any useful information for detectives. Chabanaugh suspects that Hernandez's cell service had been ended prior to being picked up with Bray. A list of Bray's phone records were obtained, determining that from a year prior to Bray's murder, Bray and Hernandez had no contact via messaging or phone calls. Further video from the Cedar Ridge Casino shows Hernandez sticking out his tongue, spitting on the floor, and also making what Kolb says to be sexual gestures towards Bray. Reporting in Billings, I'm Shaquille Cozart with MTN News.
Thanks, Shaquille. That trial will resume tomorrow morning. The Montana man who pleaded guilty to killing 2 people and badly injuring 2 others, including Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Wade Palmer, has been found fit to proceed to sentencing. It's been just over 2 years now since Jonathan Birch went on that shooting rampage in Missoula, but due to questions over his mental fitness, he has yet to be sentenced. Birch has been in the Warm Springs State Mental Hospital for months now after his father said his son is autistic and didn't know what he was doing when he pleaded guilty. However, a judge confirmed today that he is fit for sentencing after evaluations took place at Warm Springs. That sentencing is set for May 24th. Well, the latest attempt to do away with the death penalty in Wyoming has died after the bill failed to gain passage in the Senate in an 11-19 vote. Opponents of the death penalty were hopeful that the measure might pass this year after coming just a few votes short in 2019. Several groups were involved in the effort to repeal. Wyoming conservatives concerned about the death penalty released this statement following the vote, saying, quote, "Last week, both chambers passed budget legislation that will cut the public defender's office death penalty representation. Today's vote to keep the death penalty paired with that budget risks a constitutional crisis. We have the death penalty, a failed government program that risks innocent lives, but no means to provide the right to an adequate defense as defined by our Constitution," end quote. The group says it believes that it's just a matter of time before the policy is revisited. Well, tonight we are getting our first peek at one of the most anticipated bills of Montana's 67th session. That bill will shape the future of both recreational and medical marijuana in Big Sky Country. Here's a quick breakdown of the more than 250-page bill. It appropriates about $14 million over the next 2 years to run both medical and recreational marijuana regulation. Growing marijuana in the home would be banned for everyone except registered medical marijuana card holders, and the medical marijuana system would be moved from the Department of Public Health and Human Services to the Montana Department of Revenue. Most of the tax revenue from marijuana sales will go to addiction and mental health services and the state general fund. The bill also reserves marijuana licenses for each of the Montana's tribes. Now, while the bill is only in the earliest stages of the drafting process, it's clear it would make extensive changes to the system laid out in that initiative that the voters approved in November. As MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports, there are already concerns about some of those changes.
The text for the major marijuana reform bill is still going through edits, But Republican Representative Mike Hopkins of Missoula says the main goal of the bill won't change, creating a more controlled, responsible start for recreational marijuana sales.
Do it in the right way so that people feel like their vote at the ballot box was respected, and do it in a way that makes sure that we don't have any repeats of 2004 when we started out with our medical program. And now we got a great medical program, but the original iteration, I don't think the people of Montana really appreciated the green buses running everywhere.
Hopkins is carrying the bill, which Governor Greg Gianforte's administration and the Montana Department of Revenue also had input on. The proposed draft would amend most aspects of Initiative 190. Pepper Peterson of the Montana Cannabis Guild was one of the leaders of the legalization campaign. He says they're most concerned about proposed restrictions on marijuana businesses, like requiring local governments to opt in to having them.
We expect that there's still going to be some opportunity for change that comes up with the bill. And, we're going to be asking folks to come to the Capitol or, get on Skype and make comments about this legislation as it moves forward and look for some positive amendments that could make it more workable.
In the original initiative, around half of the tax revenue from recreational sales would have gone to public lands programs, particularly to conserving wildlife habitat. But Hopkins' bill would redirect much of that funding to substance abuse treatment, as Gianforte has called for. On Thursday, several conservation groups gathered at the state capitol, urging lawmakers to preserve the public lands funding.
Last fall, we all lined up and said, we're all for access. We're all for this additional conservation funding. Now, this is a chance for legislators to step up and show it.
Hopkins said voter initiatives can't bind the legislature on how to spend money. He said there will be other opportunities to fund those priorities.
Even though we might not deal with it quite as directly through the recreational marijuana bill, obviously we have about 1,500 other pieces of legislation working their way through.
Marijuana is likely to be one of the biggest issues of the second half of the legislative session, and several more large bills could still be in the drafting process. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Now turning to Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh, and Saturday's the first day of spring, Ed. Are we going into the new season with enough winter snow?
Yeah, we have enough in the mountains, but we got a lot of problems in the lower elevations. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map. Here's where we are as far as the amount of snow in the mountains based on the average for this time of the year. Anywhere in the greens really the sweet spot, anywhere between 90 and 110%. Not too much moisture. The flooding is a concern, but not a lack of moisture, so we're worried about a really dry spring. But despite that, the lower elevations have been fairly dry. This is the picture 60 days ago. You can see the areas with a higher drought as we start looking into northern Wyoming. We take it through time, and pretty much all of Montana and northern Wyoming was in some form of drought at some point or another. Now with the recent snow, northern Wyoming is trending a little bit better, but we've got some marks that could indicate that by the time we start getting into the next few weeks, eastern Montana could remain extremely dry. We'll take a look at the forecast details coming up.
Thanks, Ed. A reminder tonight about the importance of making sure our pets are up to date on their vaccines. The first case of rabies in 2021 has shown up in Montana, and it's right here in Yellowstone County. The Montana Department of Livestock says 2 dogs came into contact with a rabid skunk this Tuesday and are now being managed for exposure to the fatal viral disease. In response, a 60-day countywide quarantine has been issued for dogs, cats, and ferrets that are not currently vaccinated or who are past due for their booster. Now, this includes animals that are not 28 days past the date of their first vaccine. Any contact between your pet and a wild animal should be reported to your veterinarian or the Montana Department of Livestock. Well, the pub station will officially bring back live music starting tomorrow night. The downtown music venue was once bustling with live bands, but a year ago they had to stop due to COVID-19. That event will feature a local band and be socially distanced at an extremely limited capacity. Tickets will not be sold at the door, but are only available online.
We are super excited. It's been over a year. Last Saturday, the 13th, was officially 1 year anniversary of the pub station having the last piece of entertainment that was in here. So we are ecstatic about bringing stuff back to the Billings community in a safe and effective way, and just happy to do some socially distanced shows coming up here starting this weekend.
The early shows for both Friday and Saturday night are sold out, but tickets are still available for the late shows. Still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2, President Biden's goal of 100 million COVID shots in his first 100 days is looking more attainable by the day. But it's not all good news on the COVID-19 front. We'll have the latest on that. And in sports, it's time to dance from Bulldogs to Buffaloes to Spartans to Sooners. We'll look at some of the unusual stories behind some of the mascots in this year's NCAA basketball tournament.